This week on the Baseline Podcast, Josh and I are back talking more football. Specifically, we're talking about the Cleveland Browns and how, well, they made us happy again this past weekend where Jameis Winston led the Browns to a big victory over the Baltimore Ravens. And then we also talked about college football and some of the shocks of this past weekend and also previewing some of the big games happening this upcoming weekend. And then also a brief talk on baseball. All that, so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to an episode of the Baseline Podcast. I'm Ben, that's Josh, and we are alive and well. It is Halloween actually tomorrow. We're recording this on a Wednesday. Halloween is tomorrow, so happy Halloween. I don't know what Josh is dressing up as. Last week at school, I dressed up as a Hungarian Olympian. That's how creative I got, real just creative at school. I was just
Everybody would have known who you were though, because then they have a Hungarian Olympian do really well.
They do. They
over the
did.
summer.
They had a few. So, it kind of worked out and it was nice. So
Yeah.
that was my Halloween celebration. But it is a crazy time of the year. We have all these different playoffs happening with MLS is having playoffs, the baseball and MLB is having playoffs. You have NHL starting,
NBA and
NBA
NHL regular
started.
season is underway.
College
yes.
basketball is about to start. College football is going on. It is the best time of the year to be a sports fan. And also, you know what's also the best time? To be an American. You know why? Because we're going to vote next week. Well, I'm not really. It's complicated over here. Anyways, we're going to vote. And you know what? Some would say that it's time to make this podcast great again. So I'm just saying to you right now, let's make this podcast great again by listening so well that we just, we grow and blossom, that we truly maybe affect America and make America great again. That's all I'm going to say. We're going to move on to sports. Anyways, Josh, how are you doing? How was your weekend?
Hey, weekend was good. I had to work, so I didn't get to see a lot of the
Josh
excitement that was
working on
going
a
on.
weekend?
Yeah, this
Shocker.
coming weekend though, I got off, which is awesome because I get to see Penn State, Ohio State on Saturday, the big noon kickoff game, which we'll talk about later
Also
on in the
game days
show.
there as well. You have two primetime events. Just shows you how bad the other
Right.
games are.
And depending on what the Yanks can do, maybe I'll get to see a World Series Game
Yeah, I
7.
doubt it. I doubt
I really doubt it too. And
it.
now that the Cleveland Browns are like a good team again, since they were forced to make a change at quarterback, I'll get to watch that on Sunday too. So
I
it's a good weekend to have
It
off,
is.
Ben. And how about on that note, we actually lead off with the Cleveland Browns, which we don't really do too often on this show because there's not really a whole lot to say except the
We just
same old
tell them we
message.
suck. They're just telling people they
It
suck.
is, yeah, it's like the
I
message,
believe
but
though, Josh. I do believe, before we get into it, I do believe that Deshaun Watson was sniped. I think there was a sniper in like a helicopter, and I think he was sniped. I think that's what it was. His foot was sniped with a bullet.
well,
I'm not sure.
it's exactly what the franchise needed because everybody said that Deshaun gives us the best chance to win. And I'm just amused, Ben, that the quarterback that gave us the best chance to win was
Hmm.
benched, and somehow we had 300 passing yards for the first time in a game this season. We
Hmm.
had 3 passing touchdowns in a game for the first time this season. We scored over 20 points for the first time this season, and we beat arguably the
The best
best or
team.
second best
Yeah.
team in the AFC right now, which we both predicted would be a bloodbath the weekend before. And somehow making that change at quarterback was what needed to happen. The receivers all had great performances. Cedric Tillman
Tillman
had three
showed up,
touchdown
which,
catches.
wow.
The defense held the top rushing offense in the country to, I mean, Derrick Henry didn't even break 100 yards, so kudos to us, and also held him to just 24. It was like
Delpit lighting him up and telling him he's a small kid, which I thought was phenomenal.
the team believed, they rallied around a backup quarterback, which isn't like something that's too uncommon to see in the NFL, but
And
that's just
losing
how
two starters
bad.
on defense to
Yeah, no
injuries.
Ward, no Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, but hey, I was stunned to see it, but in
Mhm.
hindsight, it's also like, why wouldn't that have been the result when you get rid of the worst quarterback in the NFL and play just literally anybody else? It doesn't even have to be like a top 5 quarterback. It can just
Mhm.
be literally anybody else was going to do better. And how about it, Ben?
You know,
How about
it,
them Cleveland Browns? Now they can run the table here,
it
go 11-6, and be a playoff
Oh,
team.
geez. Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. No, in general, It's awesome, man. Like as a Browns fan, again, like I said, I think it was last week, the week before. Like I haven't watched a single Browns game. I still didn't watch this game. Like I could have because it was at an early kickoff, so it still would have been a decent time for me. But I was just like, I just came from Hungarian training camp for our national game, and I was just like, I'm too tired to see a loss. But then I was like randomly looking at my phone. I'm like, huh, oh, interesting. But also, did you know that in 19 Deshaun Watson starts, he's thrown 300 yards 0 times? In a combined
Yes.
7 starts between Joe Flacco and Jameis Winston, they have thrown 6 300-yard games. I just want to point that out. And so that anyone tells me that because I said this last year, I said they need to keep Joe Flacco because I think he just gives them, no matter how much money you have to eat, like it's not worth it to keep what Deshaun Watson truly is now, which is just basically a walking problem child is basically what he is. And
Yeah.
look, at the end of the day, I love the Browns when they're winning. Obviously, everyone does, but when they win it the way they did with Jim and Donovan, which by the way, prayers to his family. I know, Josh. Both of us have grown up with hearing Jim Donovan on the call and some of those iconic calls. To win it the day after he passes away, and if you heard the radio call, it was very emotional. And to win it on the day after, to win it with a backup QB, a guy who hadn't started for 2 years, kind of similar to Joe Flacco, it really started feeling this like revive vibes of last year. And this is when I go, you look at your season, you go, you know what? And I love what someone said. It's a guy that covers the Browns. He said, I don't even care if the Browns win 5 games this year. I just want to have fun watching the Browns again. And that's all any of us want. We want to be able
Ultimately,
to
yeah.
watch the Browns and go, this is awesome. Like even if they lose games, it's like this is fun to watch. Like that defense. Like there's some about when Garrett shows up in a costume for Halloween, the Browns just play really, really well. And so maybe you should do that every week. I don't know. Even when he wasn't around, like even when he really didn't play well, Ward went out, Usama Okoro went out, but all three of those guys really didn't exist, and that defense still stood tall. And to me, the biggest thing, the offensive line played well. Get rid of Jed Wills, just get rid of him, just cut him tomorrow.
Give up on
Play
that pick.
DeJuan
Yeah.
Jones because DeJuan Jones showed that he can be a left tackle. He's a tank. He's a monster. And I'm just going to say this right now. I know a lot of people are going to say the Browns might win 5 games, and maybe they will. But I'm actually excited to like talk about the Browns and go, you know what? Jameis Winston should be the quarterback next year. And if they don't, there's a good chance that a lot of the fan base really tries to push the Browns away a little bit. I wouldn't be shocked because this has proven the point that all the fans have been saying for the last 2 years that it's not a Stefanski problem. It's an ownership problem that they know they spent all this money and they don't want to waste it. Well, you know what? You wasted it. Why not just get a little bit better?
Yeah. I mean, you can look at Kevin Stefanski's track record, at least with quarterbacks. Like he's gotten the most out of Jacoby Brissett in his
Yep.
career. He's gotten the most out of Joe Flacco, at least in
At
his
the
10
age,
years of
yeah.
backup in his career. Was able to beat the 49ers last year with Dorian Thompson Robinson at quarterback somehow. Like he just seems to get the most out of like these quarterbacks that have been like journeyman backups or like almost good enough to be starters. And Watson, for whatever reason, just was a guy that they could never figure it out with. But I agree with you on the point that it is fun to see the Cleveland Browns play football, at least in that state. Even honestly, when we went 1-31 in that 17 and or 16 and 17 season or whatever it was, they were still in games. There was, I don't know if you could say there was hope for the future as we accumulated picks, or
Yeah.
it wasn't as miserable as it is now because it just seemed like they were never going to make a change. Whereas like this franchise has always tried to make change, maybe a little more than what they should. And for whatever reason, they were dead set on this one guy playing quarterback, which I'll go ahead and talk about that now. You can't put Deshaun Watson on the football field again, even when he's fully healthy next
No, you
season, right?
can't. You
At
can't.
this point,
No, 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 no,
what
no,
would
no.
that, how's the fan base going to react if they
Exactly.
see four out on the field next year when we see
They
the night and day
booed they
difference?
booed the man for getting injured. When they are
Mm-hmm.
booing the man, I'm
Yeah.
I'm sorry, cheering, getting injured. Like when you are cheering your best,
Yeah.
supposedly best player getting injured, I think that's a sign to the organization.
You
Like
cannot, you
you,
cannot ever, yeah, you cannot ever put Deshaun Watson on the field again. And I don't know if
uh,
that looks like keeping him as the most expensive backup quarterback in
dude,
NFL history
just cut
or
him,
trying
man.
to
Just
trade
eat it.
him in the
Just eat it.
offseason
Eat the
with draft
money.
picks to try to get somebody to, yeah,
Just
something
eat the
like that.
money.
But
Just eat the money.
To your point about 5 wins this season, we'll talk about the Chargers game here in a little bit. That's what they got this coming weekend, but they got games against the Saints, the Steelers, and the Broncos next, which most of those will be winnable. But the end of the season kind of backloaded. At Pittsburgh, host the Chiefs. We go to Cincinnati. We'll see if they can figure some things out defensively there.
Chiefs
We
remind me
host
of like that JV team that's really good, but they're not great. Like our varsity team that's like because like they sometimes I watch them like this is an ugly brand of football, and yet you know what they
they're
win,
7-0
and yet
somehow.
they win.
I don't get it. The Dolphins, we'll see if there's a healthy Tua and if that makes a difference to them. And then but it is also at Cleveland. We know what Tua and the Dolphins are like in the winter,
Yeah, it's
not in
like basically
Miami.
like they're like defrost, they're like frosted. They're like,
Yeah. And then we end the year at Baltimore, which
like, I'll be
fast
honest,
forward fast forward thinking Baltimore may have like a home playoff game on the line that
and
they'll
maybe
have
they
all
play
the starters
backups.
for, and we could play spoiler and screw it up
But
for
also,
them.
I think too for them is that I think you found a way to beat them. You force as Josh, we have said this for 2 years now. Force Lamar Jackson to throw the ball more than he has to, and when he has to do it, there's a good chance that he's not. Again, he had a decent game, but it wasn't the explosive offense that everyone's been bragging about from the Ravens, which I love because I have Ravens friends that I'm around, and I love how quiet they were on Sunday. I just loved it. It
Yeah.
was so
Lamar, I
phenomenal.
think this season has really improved as a
No, he's
passer.
improved. I just think
He's
that
fifth in yards, second in touchdowns, second in
I just,
rating.
but
Like,
a lot of that is with
but
the
you're
threat
right. A
of
lot of
running.
that be
It's the
is
threat
a
of the
lot of that
run.
is when you have the threat to run. Exactly. It
Yeah,
opens
but when
up
you take
a
away
lot of
that
the pass.
run, he's not a pocket passer. He's not a guy that's going to sit there and just
Right.
pick apart. It's like Jaden Daniels. He's an athletic freak, but he also can pocket pass if he needs to. And we see that with C.J. Stroud is an athletic guy, but he's a pocket passer. That's not Lamar
Hmm.
Jackson and Derrick Henry. I think the one thing about Derrick Henry I'm worried about if I'm Ravens fans is like, what's he going to be like at the end of the year? Now we know that as he's aging, he seems to get even better. But dude, they're putting a lot of pressure on this guy to be carrying the ball like 400 times this year, and that would worry me if I'm a Ravens fan.
I was shocked that he only had 11 carries against Cleveland. Like 11 carries for 73 yards, so still a very high yards per carry.
Yeah,
One of those was a 39-yard run though, so I mean if you take
but
that away, then it's like
doesn't he
10
remind
carries
you of
for 40
uh,
yards. I don't know.
like you playing against a bunch of 5-year-olds? It just reminds me
It's
of like a
it's always
dad
what
just
it looks
running
like.
through
Yeah.
and just like bouncing off people until Delpit decided to go. Which, by the way, Delpit, let's not say a little kid to a guy who's like 3 times your size and is going to run you over the next time. You got lucky the fact that he was like midair when you hit him. I'm just
Have
going to point that out. So,
Have you seen the pictures of Derrick Henry's face when he gets up to top speed?
oh, it's
He
it's
looks like
it's
a dog putting his head out the window when
yes,
you're going like
it's
70 on the highway. It's the
I think I
best.
think he's just one of those guys that like I think his body is kind of like LeBron's in the sense of like it just doesn't feel pain. Like it just things just bounce off of it and it's fine. Like that's what LeBron reminds and we're talking about, in Cleveland, we're talking about, Jim Donovan, all that, and everything you said is true. But also Cleveland Cavaliers showing up with a brand new coach, and look what they're doing. Hey, Browns, let's follow the
Mm.
Cavaliers model, and when something doesn't work, you get rid of it and do something that works, and that's what the Cavs are doing.
Topped
Let's
out with
follow that.
JB Bickerstaff. It was time to make a change. Yes.
Exactly. Let's just make the change. Anyways.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and talk about this Chargers
Mhm.
matchup here. Right now,
Oh, it's
the
going to be
Chargers
a win for the Browns because Jim Harbaugh's not winning.
Chargers are actually a 2-point favorite right now, and I
Oh,
can't blame
gross.
Vegas for how bad Cleveland's been. But this version of Cleveland, I believe a lot more in. Um, Chargers, I believe, are 4-3. Offense is near the bottom of the league, actually, in
After
terms of
starting
yards and
pretty good,
touchdowns.
they were starting pretty good, and then they kind of went into a
They did. They
lull,
really looked like they were going to take on like that Michigan identity with the way they'd been running the
and then they
football,
just
and
can't run it now.
Herbert's attempts went way down.
Yeah,
But
now they
yeah, the
can't run.
defense, however, very much like a Michigan football team. They are actually leading the league in points per game allowed. They've only allowed 13 points a game,
That's about
which
what
to
the
a
Browns
team,
average.
it's going to say, yeah, to a team that's like really struggled offensively this year overall, that really seems to present a problem. But like we just said, we got a little bit of excitement, and we can open up the playbook with Jameis Winston now. So maybe that'll
I mean, he's
change
going to
some
throw
things.
2 picks this week, but that's just Jameis. That's
That's the
what you
thing that you
get.
got to remember is like Jameis Winston is not a full-time starter right now because for every game he has like this, he'll have another one where he has like he's
Like
just a
5
pick
picks.
machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I
So
think, but I would rather have that than the Watson averaging 4 yards a pass attempt. Like I would rather have a guy who's going to take a risk, throw a pick here and there. I don't
yeah,
mind it. I really don't. I don't.
yeah. It is at Cleveland. Vegas is predicting basically a 22-20 Chargers victory here. You got a score,
Mm,
Ben?
yeah, I'm gonna go. I think the Chargers to me still need to figure out some of that offense. I think they got to become more consistent, but that's what we said about Jim Harbaugh's teams. I think ever since he was even at Stanford, it's like you got to figure out the offense. And so for me, I think I'm going to go. I think the man, I want to go with Browns, but I feel like they're just going to lose this game. But no, I'm going to go Browns. I think that Jameis maybe doesn't have the same game that he had last week, but I think he still has a decent game. And I'm going to say Chubb is going to get 100 yards and a touchdown, and I'm going to say that Browns win 24. We'll go 24-20. 24-20 Browns.
Hmm.
I'm going to say they get just a little bit more than what I think is predicted.
Okay. Um, I'm gonna go the other way. It really would be Cleveland like to come out and lose a game like this right after a big win against Baltimore. And it is like tough to predict with a backup quarterback, but maybe Jameis will prove me wrong, Ben. I'm going 24-20 Chargers, but
You are just so despicable. You.
I am despicable.
I'm just
After
kidding.
I just said everything I said about the Cleveland
Praising the
Browns,
Browns. I dare you.
yeah, man. Uh,
That's such a
when we get
Josh
into
thing to be like hyping up a team and then just being like, they're gonna lose.
yeah, I don't like doing it, but I don't know if it's just still
No, I
like
agree. I understand.
bad
Yeah, I get
memories in
that
my
too.
head. I gotta like
We
see
gotta
it
get
more
by
than
through.
one
We
week.
gotta get through. We gotta get through the pain. The
I've been
pain.
given a lot of hope as a Browns fan over the years, only to have the rug ripped out from under me. So still a little bit of things that I'm working through as a fan in this relationship. I've been totally mistreated. I don't
That
know
is
why I
true.
haven't broken up with them yet, but I'm still coming back for
We're
more for
stuck with
some
them. It's
reason.
that rich money, man.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Um, College football though,
Yeah,
Ben,
man.
I have cursed a lot of teams this year.
You
I have
have, man.
cursed.
You have hurt so many fan bases by your.
Let me just start with the newest one this week. So we've you and I both tag teamed Alabama and ruined them. I have
Oh,
ruined
100%.
Utah. I have ruined
You have
Utah.
destroyed Utah. Utah
After
is
they got that
buried.
win over Oklahoma State, which Oklahoma State's even worse than I could have imagined, I was just like, you can put anybody on the field. This system Kyle Whittingham has is unstoppable. It doesn't even matter if they just got 2 stars on the field, it'll work. And it obviously
It is
hasn't worked
tanked, man.
as well as it has in the past. And then the most recent one is Kyle McCord. We were talking Heisman's, and I was talking about maybe fringe
I
finalists at the end of the
that's
year.
so funny, man. You set that up
Syrac I
perfectly.
was like, Kyle McCord is seventh in the nation in yards, fifth in the nation in touchdown passes. If Syracuse can go 10-2, like maybe we're looking at him as maybe like one of those guys that's in New York at the end of the year. And then he goes out to throw 4 picks and a half against Pitt, 3 of them pick
5
sixes,
total.
totally throws away any chance he could have had. And I know Ohio State fans have
Oh, we're
probably
loving
been
it.
waiting for a game
Oh,
like
we are
that from Kyle
loving it.
McCord all season long.
It's like our proof. It's our proof stamp. Told you,
Yeah,
proof.
yeah. But before that game,
Uh,
given the numbers, I was like, why couldn't he be a finalist? But after a game like that, there's no coming back from that, unfortunately. But yeah,
Josh is good at cursive.
if there's any fan bases out there that have a big game that like I need to
Just
jinx
let him
their
know.
opponent or something like that, like if Ohio State needs any
Stop
like
it.
more
Stop it.
security,
Stop it.
let me go ahead and just praise Michigan, I guess. And then that can guarantee an Ohio State win. I don't know. I know that
Oh
LSU and
man.
Alabama have a big matchup coming up. Both of them, that could be a playoff
Dude,
elimination
Alabama is
game.
like being bipolar. That team went from being like can't stop anybody, Vanderbilt, to then we'll shut out a team again. I'm like, what
Yeah.
is happening?
Why don't we go ahead and talk about the weekend? We can talk about Alabama and
Yeah.
Missouri. That was a game
Well,
that
also
I
Missouri
can't remember if
people that are hyping up Missouri drive me insane because I'm like, this
I
team
can't
is bad.
remember. I went Bama, I think. Did you go Bama too?
Yes, because I said I think I went Bama. I think I went Bama, or it might have been close. I don't remember what I said, but I And I think it
I
might have
had
went
a
Bama.
very
I'm not
close
sure.
matchup because both of them had been like beating
Dude,
bad teams
Missouri
and
is so
struggling
bad.
against like mid to good teams. And Missouri, I know Brady Cook didn't play in this game, so that's probably also why they had 0
But
points.
still,
But
though,
why is Missouri also still ranked in the top 25 after that?
it's the SEC bias. Like,
The
honestly, that
SEC
team,
bias is real here for sure
yeah,
with that one. They should not be there. But yeah, I'm not going to say a whole lot about that
yeah,
one because, like I said, they weren't totally healthy.
yeah,
Jalen
yeah.
Milroe was solid, but definitely wasn't as close of a game as what I thought it'd be. Those are, like I said, two teams that were kind of in this like funk that one of them needed to get out. And I mean, I guess we'll find out how much we can take away from that as
I mean, I
weeks
just
go
don't.
on.
I just think the offense is the problem. Like, I don't know how consistent that's going to be. And look, Missouri in the top 25 is like when they had Michigan in the top 25. It's like this team is not that good, and you are just doing it based off of a
Holding on to
performance last
preseason
year and because
bias.
they
Yeah.
beat Ohio State in the bowl games. It's like awesome, cool,
Yeah.
but this team is not the same team that it even was, 7 months ago. So for me, I'm not taking a lot into that. I mean, it's great to shut out a team, but I still think Alabama loses to Georgia. I think they still lose. I think they lose if they play Texas on a neutral field. I think they lose to Texas. I think they lose to Oregon. I think they lose to Ohio State. They might lose to Miami. Like I don't know if there's a top five, top six team that they can beat right now.
Yeah. Yeah. They got some things to figure out for sure. Jalen Monroe also no touchdown passes in
Yeah,
that game.
exactly. I
Um,
believe he was in your Heisman list not too long ago as well.
Not too long ago, because he always shows up in the big games, but the last couple big games that
Uh,
hasn't been the case. Also, for bringing that up and throwing that in my face, let me bring up a cold Ben take since Notre Dame defeated Navy 51-14. I had Notre Dame in a close, ugly offensive game. I
uh,
did not expect them to come out and put up 51 on the Navy
okay.
midshipmen.
To
And they
to be
also did it
fair,
with less than 200 passing
To
yards
be
from Riley
fair,
Leonard.
I wasn't expecting Navy to turn the ball over 6 times and fumbling it 5 times. Okay, I want to point that
Yeah,
out. I was
we
not
can point.
expecting that.
Well, I wouldn't have either. Navy actually was also held to under 100 passing yards, which we had talked about how the passing game really had opened up things for them this season. But like you said, yeah, it was six turnovers. Notre Dame had zero. Uh, let's see, rushing the ball. Notre Dame actually outran them as well by about 40
Yeah,
yards.
and I traded Love away on in my fantasy league. I'm still salty about that. I always trade
Yeah,
him away wrong time.
yeah, running the ball for Notre Dame too. Love had 102 yards and two touchdowns on the ground. Riley Leonard also had 83 on the ground and a touchdown, and Young had 52 on the ground and a touchdown. They ran the ball very well.
But
Notre Dame,
that defense makes you though. That Navy defense doesn't let you throw it. It's really just like, hey,
yeah,
run it against us, or else it's kind of the way they work.
we had wondered coming into this one, like Notre Dame obviously has all like the higher ranked recruits on the line, and could they like just manhandle Navy at the line of scrimmage since they weren't able to do that against
They
Northern
did.
Illinois in week two, and
They did.
they did. So that's I think we can take a little bit of a lesson from that game.
But I also
Uh,
want to point out too is I want people to understand that Northern Illinois recruits and Navy's recruits are different, right? Like
the
people don't
people that go to play
understand.
football at
Like
Navy are a little
they're
bit
not
cut
they're
from a
not
different cloth. Yeah,
they're not 340 pound like guards, right? Like the guards at Navy are like 260, 270 pounds, and the reason is because they're in the Naval Academy.
they
Like
have
they
to be
have
a
to be a
soldier.
certain, and then also think about it. You're not going to have super tall guys. Why? Because Navy doesn't really have like there's
That's just the
usually
military in
yeah,
general. Yeah,
military in
you don't
general.
have a yeah.
So and there's certain standards. So like I want people to realize like this is not saying that Northern Illinois could beat Navy because I think Navy would wipe Northern Illinois to the floor because I think what Navy does is that they have a way to prep and that's what they do. And like when it gets stopped, which turning the ball over for Navy, we've always said this, Navy and Army, if they can keep the ball from turning it over and they score when they can, that's when they win games. And that was the problem is that Navy couldn't stay ahead of the clock and it cost them. So at the end of the
Mhm.
day, I think I'm still not saying the Navy's a bad team. I don't think Notre Dame's a great team. I think they took advantage of what was given to them, but I do think Notre Dame's a better team than what I think they were at the beginning of the year.
They're building up the confidence again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, a
Still
game
no
that we were both,
conference, so screw
yeah,
them.
still no conference. Oregon came out, had another I won't say dominant, but
It
solid
wasn't
win,
dominant, but it was a good win.
38-9 over Illinois. Dylan Gabriel moved up to second all time in the FBS for
Yeah, well,
touchdown
it
passes, I
does help
believe.
when you
Which,
play 7 years or 6 years, whatever. It does help.
yeah, it's at this point, it's like, why hasn't he already done that? But
Like seriously, like the
Gabriel,
leaders in the past, like Chang and like I think whoever was Keenan, he was only there for 4 years. Like that's what's even more like that's why I like to people. Let's put
yeah,
asterisks next to some of these guys when they've been playing for 9 years.
for sure. Gabriel in this game, 291 yards, 3 touchdowns, a pick, averaged 11.2 per attempt. Illinois on the other end, Altmaier was held to 161 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks. As far as like some of the other box score stats go, Oregon 27 first downs to Illinois' 18. Oregon 229 yards on the ground to just 132 to Illinois. Illinois had one extra turnover. So we expected Oregon to come out here and win a game,
Yeah.
probably like by about this score. We were more so, I think, curious to see how Illinois might hold up against right now is
And
the
how
best team in the
Oregon would
country.
come off, some the hype that they've been receiving and look, they proved look, Oregon proved that they are a top team in the league in the country. Um I still want to see an Ohio State versus Oregon rematch. I really hope we see that in Indy because I think that's
Hmm.
going to be a lot better than Oregon versus Indiana. Like no offense, like I know we'll talk about Indiana, but I don't think they're at that level yet. And yeah, I had people tell me like, "Oh, Indiana will beat Oregon and Ohio State." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, okay." Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's not push
Uh,
that far.
yeah. Moving on to Texas Vanderbilt. I think you thought Vanderbilt was gonna pull
Yeah,
off
I
an upset
thought
here.
they almost did. I will give them
They
credit.
almost did. This was way
They
closer. I thought
pushed it.
Texas would come out and make a statement
They
after
did not.
that loss to Georgia, and they did not. They came out and ran less than 4 yards per carry in this one. Like you said, just
Huh, sounds like a Ohio
did
State
enough to
game.
come out with a win. Yeah. Yeah, this was it got interesting. Yeah, in the fourth quarter, no one scored until Texas kicked a field goal with under 2 minutes left to go up by 10. Vanderbilt obviously marches down the field over the next minute and gets a touchdown to come in within three, but
I
yeah,
mean,
ran out of time right there at
I
the
think we
end.
can
But
agree that Vanderbilt is not a slouch anymore. I think Vanderbilt
yeah,
has seriously
I'm
got something going. And Nashville is a perfect place to have a good football team because
mhm.
that is going to give you a lot of money, a lot of backing, and I think they got something going good.
Yeah. Texas in this one too. 10 penalties for 107 yards. Vanderbilt had just four. Um, 20 first downs for Texas to 17 for Vanderbilt. Uh, just yeah, I don't know what to exactly make of Texas right now. I've been very high on them most of the season, but after losing to Georgia the way they did, and I mean, I am giving Vanderbilt a little more respect in this one than I am disrespecting Texas, but I just don't know what to
I think it's similar
make
to
of
Ohio
Texas right
State.
now, honestly.
Like as an
It's
Ohio State fan, I think it's very similar to Ohio State. I think that both teams are very good. Like when they're 100% like on the game, they're the two of the best teams in the country.
mhm.
And I know we'll talk about Ohio State, but I think when they have a few pieces that are not really connecting well with the puzzle, it kind of leaves these gaps that water starts filling up. And so for me, that's where I think Texas is in a little bit worse of a case, I think, than Ohio State, just because of the conference they play on. And if they lose one or two, three games, like, it starts building up. Whereas Ohio State,
Right.
yes, they have a game against Penn State, but then they play Purdue and Northwestern. That's like playing two JV teams. And then you have Indiana and Michigan, right? So to me, I think with Texas, I think that they're kind of becoming what the Texas has been the last 10 years, which is they'll win a big game here or there, but then against some other quality opponents, they kind of just feel like, eh. And that's what I'm worried about for Texas fans is are you going to get a Texas that goes 10-2 because they just can't beat big teams?
And the end of the year, they got a home game against Florida. They go to Arkansas. They host Kentucky, and then they got a banger at the end with Texas A&M at Kyle
And Texas
Field.
A&M is something else,
Yeah.
more than we
So
thought.
Arkansas's almost taken down some big teams, and they have
Yep.
taken down Tennessee. So that's not a
Texas just
game
got
that
to
you
be
can
alert. And
overlook.
then Florida. Oh
Yeah,
wait, sorry. To what Texas? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Josh. I'm sorry. Sorry, Josh.
it's okay.
There was a moment when Josh would
Florida has
fight
won
that.
4 games, by the way.
There's a moment when Josh would have fought that, but he's now at the point of his fandom of Florida that he's just like, you're right.
We were wondering if they would win 4 games this year.
They
And by
have won
we, I
four.
mean me, and they have.
They have won four. Will they win any more? We'll have to see.
I think the last game that we previewed was LSU and Texas A&M, and we were talking about this
And
being the game of the week.
Texas
And Texas
A&M
A&M
owned them, slapped
owned
them
them.
around.
38-23 final score
It was
here.
not as close as what it looks. It was not that close.
Yeah, Texas A&M offensively, I'm so confused. They
Their offense
didn't
is
have a
weird,
single
man. It's
touchdown
confusing.
pass. They
It's
combined
so
for
weird.
134 passing yards. Over on the LSU side, this was another guy that you could argue that I cursed. I said Garrett Nussmeier, if he can come out and get a win here, this could be his
Josh,
Heisman
you're
moment.
becoming the cursor.
He completes half his passes, throws 3 picks. I guess kudos for 405 yards, I guess, but LSU could not run the football.
We did say Texas A&M was going to have a good defense because of the coach they brought in.
Mike
And you
Elko,
said this. You
yes,
said this at the beginning of the year. You said Texas A&M might not win a ton of games, but they're going to be competitive in every game because of that defense. And you were right. So that is one thing you did get right, Josh. And I'm
it
proud of
is.
you.
And I thought also the offense would just get better just from getting rid of Jimbo Fisher
But
and
it
his.
hasn't got too much better.
Well, yeah, I mean, they score 38 points, and like I said, they didn't even pass for more. They didn't have a more than 130 yards barely. LSU, though, 23 carries for 24 yards on the ground. That's another like glaring concern right there. But let me break down how this game started, Ben. LSU was up on the board 10-0, and then after at halftime it was 17-7 LSU. And then A&M, they have that change at quarterback with Marcel Reed, and
Yeah.
for whatever reason, yeah, like Reed obviously didn't do a whole lot through the air. He had just 70 yards, but on the ground,
Some would
Texas
say
A&M, Reed had 62 yards and 3 touchdowns. Daniels, their leading rusher, had 12 carries for 91 yards, and they also had Moss come out here with 83 yards on the ground and 2
some would
touchdowns.
say the read option was really good.
See, some people I know in Aggie land too have been hoping that Marcel Reed would take over as the full-time starter,
I'm just
and
saying that was the best joke I've had in a while.
it was
That one was fire. That was a fire. I
it
was
was
hoping. I was like, is Josh going to say something? Because I was
it did
waiting to
not
see if
draw
you
a
were.
laugh, but it made me smile.
But the thing was, I was wondering if you were going to say that similar joke because I figured no, but then I was like, oh, I got
Uh,
to say it.
yeah,
Rule number
Wegman.
one about telling jokes: stop talking about the joke after you say it. That's rule number one, and I broke it.
Yeah,
Anyways, go ahead.
Wegman, this one was 6 of 18. He was not having a day.
He's not
So,
good. He's not good. I don't really like him
yeah,
as a QB.
I thought that he might be a difference maker this year because he showed some promise last year. But yeah, I think from here, you definitely got to go Marcel Reed. And let's look ahead at Texas A&M's schedule here because they go to South Carolina now. They host New Mexico State. They go to Auburn. And then they obviously host Texas at the end of the year. So I think it's a little bit easier of a road to that final game
New
against
Mexico
Texas than
State,
what
man.
Texas has.
Mexico State gonna be a challenge down there in the Aggies.
Battle of the Aggies. Yeah, I think New Mexico State's the
Yeah, they
Aggies,
are.
right?
Yes, they are the Aggies.
All right. Yeah, Texas A&M, man. I think I picked LSU in this game though, and
You
that's
did.
because
You did.
it's because every time Texas A&M gives you a little bit of hope like this,
They just crumble.
it's one of those things where it's like you're reminded that oh, this is Texas A&M. They're always a joke, but I don't think that Texas A&M's a joke
I don't
right
either.
now.
I
They
don't
could
either.
very well, even if they lose that Texas game, go 10-2, be in
That
the
is
college
true.
football playoff,
That is true.
and they're a team that I don't want to have to face.
No, not at all. Or especially if they have a home game for the first game. Oh, I would not want to travel to Kyle Field.
Yeah,
Not on a home
Kyle
game. No
Field
way.
at night
Oof.
for a playoff game. See, this is the thing that Josh Pate's always been saying about Texas A&M is like it's one of the best jobs in the country, and it's just been like completely misused by all the head coaches. They haven't gotten the right guy in there, but they got the resources, they got the fans, they got the interest, they got the
They have a
facilities. It's
ton of resources.
yeah,
More than you need.
yeah, and maybe Mike Elko's finally that guy that's going to finally like take advantage of all of it and actually get some development with some of
Heck,
these recruits because they recruit well over there.
Ohio State
But
took their AD and brought him on at Ohio State because of what he was doing down there. So I'm just saying they have the
right.
money.
And speaking of Ohio State, let's go ahead
Oh
and
boy.
end the week talking about
Yeah.
that game because I thought after IU pulled Nebraska's pants down and Ohio State was coming off the bye
Yeah.
and the frustration from things not going their way at Oregon, there might be, a crazy blowout win for Ohio State on the horizon. But instead, Nebraska was like, you know what? We're going to redeem ourselves. IU embarrassed us. We're going to show that we're not no slouch. And I know Ohio State also had some struggles on the offensive line in this one. That led to little closer of a score than what you'd expect, but ultimately Ohio State comes out here and gets the win. But I'm a little disappointed, Ben, if I'm an Ohio State fan, by the way the run game performed, because Quinshon Judkins, 10 carries for 29 yards, and Travion Henderson, 10 carries for 25 yards. This was supposed to be, and probably still is, the best running back duo in all college football. But to come into a game like this and just get performance like that, definitely not what you're looking for. But shout out the Ohio State defense, I guess, for coming
Defense
out
played
and
great, yeah.
yeah, Jim Knowles put together a good game plan. Made Dylan Raiola a little uncomfortable, just 152 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick in this one. But yeah, I don't think Ohio State fans are really feeling too good about that game,
Mhm.
especially having to go to Penn State this weekend. But you're a
Yeah.
Buckeye fan, so let me get a read on the temperature of the fan base right now.
No, I think there's a lot of people like one, like I have to agree with some people that say that Ohio State Stadium is weird because when the game gets close, the fans show up and are loud and crazy, but when it's not, it's like one of the quietest stadiums in America. And I'm probably one of the only Ohio State fans that will actually say that because I saw it
I've
on
been hearing that a
Saturday.
lot on Twitter that Ohio
No,
State's home
well,
home like
I saw
environment
it
is
on
boring
Saturday.
right now.
Well, I saw it on Saturday. Like when the game was close, the fans were so loud, and it shows you how loud that place can be, right? But I think they're so used to winning that a lot of people are just like those, those rich people that just want to stay up and do nothing. But no,
That's all you can afford.
yeah,
I
I
mean, that's
mean
the only people that can afford to go to Ohio State games too,
that's
because of the way
true.
ticket prices are anymore.
But
I
yeah, it's look. I'll say this. I thought the defense bounced back pretty well. I still get worried that they're giving an island to both Burke and Igbenos. And Igbenos is the most penalized DB in the country. Burke gets burnt every other play right now. I know that's Noel's thing, single it, whatever. And it did hurt that they didn't have Ransom, so I think that made it look a little worse because you didn't have that extra safety. You're on to play Lorenzo Styles, other whatever. They got saved because Orville Reese had a stupid targeting call, which by the way, targeting call is ruining college football. And
Yeah,
it
I was
wasn't a
shocked that they
targeting
actually
call.
came out in the office and overturned that
Yeah.
after the game so that he can play this weekend.
Yeah, because I think it was smart. Because if you look at that play, that was a football play. It was
Yeah,
not. It was he tried to low. Like if you look, he tried to like stop himself, but he was
yeah.
already moving forward. So again, it's ruining football, but that's another story for another day. But I think generally overall, the defense played phenomenal for the most part. I mean, there was a few plays here and there, but again, I can't criticize after that Oregon game. I'll take this. What worries me is that left tackle you saw Zen Mahalski going against not the best pass rusher, Robinson or any of their pass rushers. He was going against freshmen, and freshmen were making him look like a 5-year-old. And Zen Mahalski, he got hurt at the end of the game, which worried the crap out of me. We'll see what happens. Supposedly he's good to go, but if not, that means they're probably gonna move Donovan Jackson over, which I'm sorry, he might be an All-American guard, but he's definitely not an All-American tackle. Um,
Yeah, you want to put him at
so
tackle, his first game playing at Penn State.
yeah,
I don't know
so
if that's necessarily the move, but it might be the best option
yeah,
at this
so
point.
I do point out I do want to point out that it's not Travion Henderson or Judkins' fault. This was an offensive line issue because they can only do what they can find holes to and gaps to. I thought they also the fact they only targeted Jeremiah Smith 4 times, all 4 times within the first 2.5 quarters. You didn't target him at all in the fourth quarter or anything like that. To me, shows that they were trying to kind of, and I heard someone on the podcast say this on a different podcast say they were really, you could tell that Chip Kelly was trying to fix the running game during that whole second half of the game. He's like, I got to figure out something for next week, which did worry me because I was like, man, we got to win this game.
Yeah, I think Will
Um,
Howard only had like 16 pass attempts in this
yeah,
game.
but he played well. Like he played well when he had
He
the
did. It
chance.
was an efficient game. It
Yeah,
wasn't a
and
lot of
the
volume. Yeah.
picky through was a bad route, also with a bad throw. So again, he's lowered the interception, so I'm not worried about that. But I'll finish by saying this: is that I think this game, I hope, is that extra. You know, how do I put it? Is the extra oomph, if that makes sense. The extra
Hmm.
oomph they need to go. Hey, by the way, one Nebraska's not as bad as what I think they played against Indiana, and also anyone can beat you if you don't put your best effort. But again, the talent of Ohio State was better. And can we also talk about how a 6'3", 220-pound 18-year-old just outran a bunch of grown men is just phenomenal to watch. But anyways, that is my take on Ohio State right now. So
I gotcha. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add there. I mean, a couple other interesting scores. I thought Boise State 29-24 against UNLV, coming out with that one. Um, The one line that everybody was always all confused about this week was that UCF was a 2-point home favorite against undefeated BYU, and BYU came in and won 37-24, made it not even close.
Yeah.
Penn State, 28-13 win over Wisconsin.
Was
Drew
not
Aller
a
exits this game
pretty
with an
was
injury,
not
and
a
it's
pretty
being
game.
reported a game time decision for this weekend. But
Which we know in
backup
college football
quarterback,
that means probably not playing is what that means in college football usually.
sometimes, yeah. Backup quarterback actually came in and
He looked
took Penn
decent
State.
actually.
Yeah, Penn State was actually trailing when he came in, and they come out and win 20-13 in this one. So, I mean, Penn State's got their own issues to worry about too. SMU comes out and wins a thriller at Duke in overtime, 28-27. Fun matchup there. And Kansas State. Kansas hasn't been that good, Ben, but Kansas made them sweat. They come out and only win 29-27 in that one. And the other one I wanted to point out too was Colorado. Colorado came out and who was it they beat? Cincinnati. Yes, this was a 34-23 win at home against Cincinnati. Colorado is now bowl eligible. Travis Hunter took just 3 snaps off in this game. Shador has another solid outing.
I will say that him winning big defensive player of the week was I mean, if you looked at his stat line, I'm just saying
I think it's
we're
more
getting to it.
narrative
We're getting to
driven.
yeah, we're getting to a point now where I'm like, okay, I looked at other stat guys from that conference and I was like, you're telling me that he had 4 deflections is what won him defense? Like, just I don't know. I get to a point where I'm like, okay, it gets frustrating. Like you're throwing it down our throats. We get it. He's a two-way player. We got it. Yep. Can we just
And I mean,
yep,
four
can we get
PBUs
it?
like that still is solid.
But
But
yeah, but it's not, again, maybe that's just my
yeah,
opinion, but I just think that's a little bit.
offensively though, 9 catches, 153 yards, and 2 touchdowns earned. Shador
Yeah.
also 323 yards to the air, 2 touchdowns, no picks. But Colorado's now bowl eligible, and I think we were saying this. I was saying this earlier. Colorado was the team that after they lost to Nebraska, I thought maybe go 3-9 and Dion just leaves because the experiment failed and he's too prideful to try to build something over there. But instead, Colorado's 6-2 now. And honestly, it seems like everyone's a lot more quiet about Colorado this year than they were last year when they went 4-8. Does it seem that way to you?
Yeah, because I don't think anybody trusts that they're actually going to be doing anything like outside of just a normal bowl game. Like I don't think their defense is good enough to compete with any of the top teams. I really don't.
I think, yeah, we just got like some more realistic expectations around this team.
Yeah.
They kind of wore out their welcome a little bit last year, and they didn't really have any merit behind that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
hey, yeah, Colorado actually is in the AP top 25 now.
Yeah. It's wild to think, but again, I don't think they have the gusto to make it far. If even if they had the chance, because I'll be honest, the Big 12 champion is going to get slaughtered by any team that they face in the
The
playoff.
field is, yeah, the field's
They're
still
going to
open too with
slaughter them.
BYU, Kansas State, Iowa State. We'll
But
see
any
what
of those
Colorado
teams
does,
just
but
get slaughtered by whoever faces them from
yeah,
that
the race
matchup.
to that championship game though is one that I'm definitely keeping an eye on as a fan though. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
But that was the week, so let's go ahead and revisit our top 5 teams and top 5 Heisman candidates right now.
Oh yes, let me pull it up. Just watching my dog in the back, just hanging out. She's just
I'm watching
waddling.
your dog too.
She, she she has her vest on, her nice bright green vest. Uh, it's her Halloween costume. She's a church parking person, is what Rebecca says. A church parking person. All right. So power rankings. We had the exact same power rankings. This is a rarity, guys, that Josh and I had the exact same power rankings. It was Oregon 1, 2 Ohio State, 3 Georgia, 4 Texas, 5 Penn State. So both of us same there. Let's just I'm just going to go over mine, and you can go over yours after that. There's just a slight change with mine, not really much at all. So mine's Oregon 1. I'm going to go Georgia 3. Georgia 2, Ohio State 3. I'm going to go Texas 4, Miami 5. So that's just a slight change, a tweak between the top 2 and 3. And then I
Okay.
just, after Penn State playing the way they did, and again,
Yeah.
maybe I'll be proven wrong this week and they'll beat Ohio State, but I don't, we'll talk about that in a bit, but yeah.
Yeah. For me, Oregon number 1, like I've been saying, kind of like with Illinois, they're winning games the way you would expect them to. There's some of these
They're
other
winning
top
games.
teams that are
Yeah.
struggling against teams that they shouldn't be struggling with. And they had obviously the things to work out from the first two games of the season, but also Boise State's been proven to be a pretty solid opponent in
Mhm.
hindsight. But yeah, Oregon just seems to be far and away the best team in the country right now. And then I also flipped Georgia and Ohio State. So Georgia's number 2 for me now. Ohio State's number 3. A little bit of doubt. I think I'll learn a lot from them in the Penn State game, and maybe they can earn that number 2 spot right back. Uh, Texas is still at 4. Like I said, I think Vanderbilt's. I think we learned more about Vanderbilt from that game, that they're definitely for real. So I'm
Mhm.
giving Texas some credit for coming out when beating a good team, but not moving them up any higher for it. I also would like to see more win or more a bigger win for Texas in a game
Mhm.
like that because you're
Yeah. Yeah.
Texas.
Yep.
And
Agreed.
I'm keeping Penn State at 5 because I've battled this one. I almost wanted to put Penn State at 4, but I also don't know what they are without Drew Aller right now. But I also know that if he's out, they got a guy that they can at least compete with. Like we saw quarterback depth at Texas with Arch Manning. They hung in there with him. They didn't like really waver too much.
Yeah.
And I think Penn
Agreed.
State
Yeah. Yeah.
could be the same way, but I believe a little bit more in Texas's quarterback depth right now. So that's why I'm keeping Texas at 4, Penn State at 5. But man, if Penn State comes out and gets a big win at home against Ohio State, might be
We'll see.
shooting up
We'll
to
see.
maybe 3, maybe even 2. I don't know.
We'll see.
We'll see though, but that's my top 5.
Love it. Now on to the Heisman watch. So last week, Josh had Ashton Jeanty 1, Travis Hunter 2, Cam Ward 3, Caleb Johnson 4, and Shador Sanders 5. I had Ashton Jeanty 1, Travis Hunter 2, Dylan Gabriel 3, Cam Ward 4, Will Howard 5. I'll start with number 5, and then we can kind of go down to 1. So for me at number 5, I am making a change here, and I'm gonna go Cam Ward. Not that he did anything bad. I just think that his performance, the person I put in number 4, you'll make sense here in a second, but I'm going to put Cam Ward at number 5 for me.
All right. New face in mine at 5. I'm gonna put Dylan Gabriel here.
He should have been
Uh,
in there a while back, but
maybe I want to see more like totals from him. I
yeah,
know
it's
he's
true.
efficient, but sometimes efficiency just means that you're not really taking many shots downfield. But yeah, Dylan is definitely starting to cruise here, hit his stride. We're seeing some bigger games from him, but totals are starting to come out. So yeah, I can't keep him out any longer. So Dylan Gabriel is breaking back into my top 5 right there at 5.
Nice. And for me, uh, at number 4, yes, number 4 is Shadur Sanders. So Shadur Sanders comes into the fray for me. I haven't had him in my list at all. But Will Howard's dropping out again. Nothing is Will. Will actually had a really good game. He only passed it 19 times though, so it's not like he had enough there. But also Shadur Sanders, just what he's doing offensively, helping lead that Colorado offense. He is there at number 4 for me.
All right. And Shador's also there for me too at 4. He was 5 last week, but yeah, 6th in the nation in passing yards. I believe 3rd in the nation in passing touchdowns. And for everybody that does love the completion percentage stat, he's 4th in that too. So definitely crushing it. Like I said, another great game this last week.
That offensive line needs to help him though.
Yeah, it always does. But yeah, Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn are really doing everything they can to help him out though. So yeah, Shador at 4.
Love it, love it. Number 3 for me is going to stay Dylan Gabriel. The efficiency has been great. He's slowly starting to get some bigger plays and using his legs a little bit more. But what he's doing so far, I can't, and he's got one of the biggest wins in the year for any quarterback. So I'm going to keep Dylan Gabriel at 3.
All right. And I'm also going to keep Cam Ward at 3. Don't really have a whole lot to say. I think you said everything you needed to about him. But yeah, Cam is still a quarterback of an undefeated team, still 2nd in the country in passing yards. Let me get an update on his touchdown passes. 2nd in the country in touchdown passes. When you're a quarterback of an undefeated team and doing that well nationwide, you got to be, I think, top 3.
Love it. And then number two and number one, I'll just say both will stay the same for me. Number two is Travis Hunter. Again, what he's doing is it's unprecedented. I mean, he's being phenomenal on both sides. And I think it helps, though. He was going against a pretty poor defensive team. So I think that did help him this week. And then Ashton Jeanty, again, didn't have necessarily the numbers that I think many of
This was
us
his
are used
worst
to.
game of the
It
season.
was. I think most people would love to have 120 yards and say that's your worst game of the season. But again, only averaged about 3.8 yards a carry. And so a little bit down, but again, what he's doing and the fact that he's about to obliterate Barry Sanders' record if he keeps up this, at least even what he did on last weekend, then it's going to be phenomenal to watch. So I still have Ashton Jeanty at number one.
So Ashton Jeanty, I'm slipping him down to 2. I think
Of course
Travis
you
gained
are.
some momentum this weekend.
Of course you
Yes,
are.
but
You little Travis Hunter fanboy.
Jeanty also does not lead the league in rushing touchdowns anymore.
Is that Caleb Johnson now?
It is not Caleb Johnson. It's the dude from Army. It's I'll get you his
Is
name.
that Blake Horvath?
Bryson Daly.
Oh, it's the oh yeah, it's the quarterback who has like 20 touchdowns as a quarterback, which is always weird whenever I see that. It's just a little
Yeah,
odd.
19 right now. 19 right now.
I feel like
Jeanty at
Army and
18.
Navy should not like the quarterback should not be labeled as a quarterback. It should be a different
A
position. So
Wildcat
it's just
quarterback.
weird. It's just
Yeah,
weird.
yeah. I mean, Jeanty's got time, man, but averaged under 4 yards a carry, like I said, for the first time this year. Just one rushing
Against a good
touchdown.
defense though. UNLV's defense is good though.
UNLV is a good team, like a good team. But yeah, I think Hunter just had gained a lot of momentum this week with the performance that he had at receiver. I know the defensive performance wasn't probably the best in the Big 12 over the week, but still, I mean, that adds to the narrative of elite two-way player.
Huh.
I think this
Truly
was,
trying to help him win that other than a Heisman then.
yeah, but it was a momentum week. I mean, this is really going to be, honestly, I think between just Jeanty and Hunter. And then, like,
Yeah.
there's these other guys that, like, definitely got worthy cases that can get to at least an invite to New York. But I think it's going to be these two guys. And honestly, with 4 games left, we're going to see, like, you know, a lot of, I think, momentum
I
change.
would
But the
I
race is
would love to
close.
see I would love to see like Janty, Hunter, and Jeremiah Smith as like the finalists for the Heisman. That would be hilarious. I would
Throw
love
Caleb
that so
Johnson in
much.
too and have it be
Yeah,
no
it'd be
quarterbacks.
phenomenal.
Yeah, so that's my reasoning right now. It's very close. It's very I give very slight edge to Travis, but yeah, that's my top 5.
Love it. All right, moving on to our previews this week. As we finish up the show this week, we're going to do our previews, which are some good games, just a few. There's
Yeah,
a big one that's happening, though. A big
a
one.
big one. We'll kick it off.
Let's
Ohio
do it.
State is at Penn State, Ben, for the big noon kickoff.
Which is weird that it's not at night. If I was Penn State, I would have found a way to schedule this at night. But I'm fine with it
Two,
because I can watch it
yeah,
at a normal time, so I'm fine with it.
right. That's the cool thing about it. So, a couple stats that I think are interesting in this one, Ben,
Hmm.
is Penn State, I heard from the Josh Pate show, is 123rd in the nation in starting field position.
That is
Ohio
wild.
State's defense, as you know, gives up a lot of explosive plays. It's like
Okay, okay. Let's not say a lot. Let's just say more than what
in
you
big
want.
games, Jim Knowles always allows explosive plays. It's what really
He gets
hurts you guys in the
aggressive. He
Oregon
gets
game.
aggressive.
I don't know like what the totals stack up like as far as like the what everyone else is like in the country, but we just know that Ohio State in the big games defense allows a lot of explosive plays. So Penn
True.
State weakness right here against Ohio State weakness right here. A Another advantage I could, well, not advantage, but another interesting matchup I think will be Penn State's run defense against Ohio State's rush offense, given what we just talked about with the Ohio State
Yep.
offensive line and Judkins and Henderson having some off nights. Penn State also the home team here. And then I think the other thing that this is going to come down to is Drew Aller going to be the quarterback? I don't know yet. James Franklin says it's probably going to be a game time decision. I hate that answer, but
That's a Ryan
also
Day answer. And usually when Ryan Day says that, that means that the person does not play. That's
it
usually
is
what
a
that
Ryan
means.
Day answer too. But Bo Prabula, in
He would
relief,
give Ohio State a little bit more of a scare because they don't do well against mobile quarterbacks that well.
he was 11 of 13 with 98 yards to the air, 1 touchdown, no picks on the ground, 6 carries, 28 yards. So it's not going to be like an incapable backup, as we've seen from some Penn State backup quarterbacks in the past, try to come out. But yeah, this one is, I really don't know which way to go right now. If I knew the quarterback matchup, maybe I'd feel a little more confident.
Mhm.
But Ohio State is a 3.5 point road favorite. That's
Mhm.
everything that I'm noticing, Ben. What do you think?
No, I mean, I think you said you nailed a lot of it right there on the head, and I think, look, I've said from day one that if Ohio State wants to run the table and win the national title this year, they have to be efficient and and dominating on both sides of the ball. And look, for most of the season, offensively, they've been really, really good. But when you took the left tackle out of the situation, it seemed like somehow Chip Kelly got a little fearful and he started calling a lot less direct runs and there were shorter passes. Like it just didn't seem like there was much. And again, maybe this will change depending on who's the tackle. Now, I've heard things like if Mahalski goes, they're going to stick with Mahalski, which to be honest with you, I think you'd change anyways. There's been rumors they move Donovan Jackson out and you bring in a couple guys that have veteran ability inside. We'll have to wait and see. But again, I agree with you. The run defense versus the run offense. Look, if Travion Henderson and Judkins are on and they do some of those explosive plays like they did against Oregon, I don't see how Penn State can keep up because then you have to guard against the run, which then opens up the Jeremiah Smiths, the Abukas, the Carnell Tates, the G Scotts, the Ballards. I could keep going because there's so many weapons
Hmm.
on Ohio State's offense. And also, I think a bold statement for me is that they need to target Jeremiah Smith and Abuka more than 4 times a piece. These dudes should be
Yeah.
getting the ball at least 7 to 8 times. And when they've done that, it's proven that they win ball games. When they get the ball a lot, it proves that they most likely win ball games. And so defensively, I'm not as worried. I don't look even if Aller's not the quarterback and you bring an athletic quarterback, I still don't think outside of the tight end, as what a lot of people agree with me on this, is that Penn State's offense I don't think is dynamic enough to cause as much of a headache as what Oregon did. So I think there's a chance where you kind of contain it in a sense. And again, if Ransom plays, that really will be a benefit to that. But offensively is going to be the question: what are they going to do on the left side of the line? And how are they going to help out? Because they basically put Mahalski on an island and said, "Good luck, bud." They can't do that against Abdul Carter because they will, I guarantee it, line up Abdul Carter and whoever's left tackle and be like, "Stop us." That's basically what they're going to
Hmm.
say.
The last 2 seasons, Ohio State's defense, I will say, has showed up in this one. Obviously, 2 years ago, JTT had like his
What a
coming out
game! What a
party.
game!
And then last year, obviously made life very difficult for Drew Aller. The other thing that I think will be interesting is head coaching narratives because James Franklin has like one win. He's like 1-11 or something like that against Ohio State and Michigan or something like that.
Yeah,
And then Ryan Day, obviously, right now, everybody's talking about his record against top 5 teams. And right now, at least in the AP poll, Penn State's ahead of Ohio State right now just by one spot, but still number 3. So if Ryan Day loses this game, I don't think you fire him, but I do think you get a lot of pissed off Ohio State fans from this one. But I'm going to go ahead. Maybe I don't have as much ammo to feel this way, but I'm going to go ahead and lean Ohio State. I think somehow they find a way to go ahead and win this game. But
yeah. I'm feeling, and maybe you can say I'm wrong. I'm feeling like Notre Dame vibes from last year, like this going on the road and this kind of like grind out
yeah.
ugly win that annoys every Ohio State fan, even if they won, which I always like to remind Ohio State fans, like the point of football is to win. Like that's the point. So
Hmm.
let's be happy when we win, right? And so
Yeah, that Oregon game, if you won by a point, I don't think anybody would have been mad or should have been mad
no.
given how it went. It was like
They
trading
still should have
punches
been
all night.
upset. Still like you competed all the way to the end. So I think that's the way this game's going to go. And I'm going to say, goodness, I'm going to say the score, and people are going to shock by the score that I'm going to be about to give. I'm going to say it's 21-14 Ohio State. Like I think it's going to be a slug out,
Hmm.
smash mouth, and I think a 21-14. And I'm going to say Jeremiah Smith has 2 touchdowns, one rushing and one receiving touchdown. And my other bold statement is JTT is going to have 3 sacks in his return to the old Nittany Lions stadium there in Happy Valley.
All right. Yeah. Either way, two tough road environments for Ohio State. Have to go to Austin Stadium and then, yeah, go to Happy Valley at Penn State. But maybe it's just blind faith I think Ohio State will find a way, and I think it will be ugly, as you also said. I don't know if I'll hold Penn State under 20. I mean, that'll probably depend on if I get Drew or if I get Bo at quarterback, but I'll give Ohio State a 24-20 edge right here. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun game. I don't expect a whole lot of points. If anybody scored 4 touchdowns in this one, I'd be shocked.
Oh, agreed.
All right, the other one that I got here, sticking in the Big Ten, maybe not the big national matchup, but USC is at Washington, Ben. Both are 4-4 going into this game. And I really think the loser of this one is really sweating bowl eligibility in their first year of Big Ten play.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why I bring it up, because it's like a bowl elimination game almost in my mind. But maybe both of them will still win 6 games by the year's end, but you're running out of time. And if you can't beat some of the teams that they've beaten, I mean, it's going to be interesting what the fan bases, especially in USC, will be reacting to if Lincoln Riley declines for another year in a row at USC from his start in that year where they were in the Big 12 championship and they win, they're in the playoff to last year's disappointing season when like set going 7-5 and then maybe 6-6 this season or 5-7. Given as much money as he has, I'd be very, very upset. And then if you're Washington, nobody expected them to probably make
No,
the
I give them a
playoffs,
little bit of
but
a grace card, I think, this
Washington,
year. Yeah.
Washington, I think, has like a little more of like a pass.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think this game's going to be a weird Pac-12 type game. And I'm going to say like Washington 45, USC 42. I just think it's going to be just a not because any of the offense is good. I just think that's just the way the game's going to go. And I'm going to say, yeah, Washington gets a 3-point win and maybe puts Lincoln Riley on the hot seat.
So Washington, after this one, they go to Penn State, they host UCLA, and they have to go to Oregon.
They're done.
They got to win this one.
Yeah, they have to.
USC, on the other hand, they get to host Nebraska, they go to UCLA, and then, of course, they got the Notre Dame game at the end of the year.
They also might need to win this game.
Yeah, if they don't win this one, so they're 4-5, Nebraska's
Yeah.
no pushover either.
Yeah.
But if they're like 5 wins and they gotta go to that Notre Dame game, I'm not feeling good.
No.
But in this one, I think I'm gonna lean Washington. I think that the home field for them is gonna be the ultimate deciding factor here. Like playing at Husky Stadium is tough, as we learned last year, and it's not like the USC offense has really given me a whole lot to be happy about. I mean, they beat Rutgers 42-20 last week. I thought Rutgers might find a way to win that one, but the way that they lost to Maryland, the way that they lost to Minnesota, I just don't feel very well. Even like the loss to Michigan, like a team that can't even score a whole lot of points, scores 27 on them.
Yeah.
I just don't feel good about USC right now, but I think Washington has a little bit more upside in this one. Maybe the home field advantage is the final deciding factor there. I'll go 27-24 Washington.
Love it. Love it.
All right. We'll go to the ACC now. Pitt is at SMU.
It's a good game.
Some might have said that this is where College Game Day should have taken their crowd, but
I disagree. I disagree.
I know.
I disagree.
Pitt 7-0 at SMU 7-1. A lot of people were unsure of Pitt, but after the Syracuse game, I mean, everybody was talking about Syracuse being not elite, not great, but good. I think they finally got a good win now that they can throw on their resume, because before that, Pitt had beaten Cal 17-15. They'd beaten West Virginia 38-34, Cincinnati 28-27. Like they didn't really have a whole lot to write home about, but coming out and exploding for 41, although mostly defensive points on Syracuse, I think was a nice statement for them. And then SMU, on the other hand,
By the way, have 6
7-1.
jerseys, by the way. Their Dallas jerseys are fire.
Yeah. Yeah. As we said, the overtime win against Duke by 1 last week. Duke was also coming into that game, I think, with a 6-1 record, if I remember right. SMU also has the upset win over Louisville earlier in the season. Their only loss was 18-15 to BYU, which is one of the, I mean, it's a respectable loss for sure right now. But ACC, Ben, we got Miami, Clemson, Pitt, and SMU. I think
Yeah.
this is this conference has been a little more interesting, I think, than what we'd have thought. It's not just like the one horse race.
What do you mean, Florida State? I mean, aren't they? Oh, wait, yeah. They're 1-7.
We would have
Yeah,
thought
just
the
want
one
to point that
horse
out.
race would have been Florida State.
1-7. We're oh my Lord, that
Embarrassing,
hurts.
yes.
Oh, that hurts.
SMU coming into this game is a 7.5 point favorite. Can you believe it? Although they are the home
You know what I
team.
can't believe is that we're in a world where Vanderbilt, Indiana, Navy, and Army are better than Florida State. I just thought I'd point that out. We're
For
in that
sure.
world now.
All right, Pitt SMU.
Yep.
I think
Ooh.
that I think SMU wins, but I don't think it'll be by 7.5. I think I'd take Pitt points, but 34-30 SMU.
I'm gonna go Pitt here. I'm believing in a little Pitt. What's going on there? I think it's
Okay.
Narduzzi, right? That's their coach, I believe.
Pat Narduzzi, yep.
I believe in what Pitt's doing. Eli Holstein, his last couple weeks has looked rough. I know he's been banged up. He hasn't looked the same as he did previously, but I still believe in what I mean. That dude's running for 100 yards and throwing for 200 yards at times. Well, I love what he's doing, mainly because he's also my fantasy team, so I need him to do well. But also, I think Pitt's exciting to watch, and I'm excited to see what they do going forward. And I think I'm going to take Pitt here barely. I'm going to say 27-23. I'm going to say Pitt gets a win, squeaks it out there, 27-23.
All right. We stay in the ACC and go to Louisville at Clemson. This might be Louisville's last ditch effort, Ben, to stay relevant. The last several games have been rough. They got the loss to Notre Dame. They got the loss to SMU. They squeak out against Virginia. They lose to Miami, although they made Miami sweat. And then last week, not last week, they coming off a bye, but their last game. I'm messing up the dates. I think it was last week.
Yeah, they were
Friday.
last week. Yeah.
Friday they get away with one at Boston College, but yeah, they gotta go to Clemson now. This is going to be a night game for Clemson too. Uh, Clemson's most recent games, I'll go ahead and highlight them. They beat Virginia by 17, beat Wake Forest 49-14, beat Florida State 29-13, beat Stanford 40-14. They've definitely come a long way since that loss to Georgia. I don't think anybody saw this coming. I highlighted Cade Klubnik's stats last week about maybe how he could be a Heisman finalist by the end of the season. I know that means that he's going to throw 5 picks in this game now since I said it. But after this, Virginia Tech, Pitt, the Citadel, South Carolina. So it gets a little more challenging for Clemson. Just a little bit. But I'm feeling good about Clemson in this one. I could see a double-digit win, honestly.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's double-digit win. I'm gonna say Clemson wins this game. I'm gonna go 31-20 Clemson. I don't think Louisville has the oomph to keep up with Clemson right now and the way Clemson's playing. I don't see them losing a game like this at this time of the year.
Yeah. Yep, I'm going to go ahead and say that Clemson puts up 40. I'll go 40-25 Clemson. Cover that 10.5 point spread that Vegas has given them.
Love it.
The last one here, stay in the ACC. I think another fun matchup, Virginia Tech at Syracuse. I think Virginia Tech is figuring some things out. I'm also curious to see how Syracuse bounces back from that ugly performance that we saw against Pitt last week. Syracuse hopefully keeps their ACC hopes alive. But Virginia Tech 5-3, Syracuse 5-2. This is a noon game as well. I think evenly matched. Virginia Tech's being given 4 points in this one.
I don't believe in Kyle McCord at this point. I think we're at that stage now where the Kyle McCord that I remember is coming out, and I'm gonna say, I believed in Virginia Tech all the way back at the beginning of the year. You guys
Oh
remember that
yeah.
was my pick for AC. We don't
Mm-hmm.
talk about it because I try to avoid things I've cursed, but no, I'm gonna say Virginia Tech wins this. Oh, this is just game's not even fun to pick. I'm gonna say Virginia Tech wins 28 to let's go 38-28 Virginia Tech.
Yeah. Virginia Tech, they had a 3 point loss to Rutgers and then the 4 point loss to Miami. Definitely tough, but they've bounced back to have 31-7 win over Stanford, 42-21 over Boston College. Last week, 21-6 over Georgia Tech. So they're riding a 3-game streak coming into this one. Definitely more momentum than what Syracuse has. And I think they go ahead and pull off a win here. Give me Tech 38-30. I don't think McCord's going to have like 5 or 6 picks in this one, but Virginia Tech's going to continue, I think, ride some momentum. Finish with a respectable season.
That is
Clinch bowl
true.
eligibility.
That is true.
Yeah, you guys might be wondering why I didn't pick a lot of the ranked teams to preview in this one. Honestly, I think some of the matchups are a little more boring. Honestly, I'll go ahead and read some of the top 25 teams matchups this week. Like Miami and Duke, definitely interesting. I'll give you that. But like, Oregon's at Michigan, Georgia's against Florida, Texas A&M's against South Carolina, Tennessee's hosting Kentucky. Like, there's not a whole lot of exciting games in the top 25 slate, but all that means is that we could be in for another big upset weekend like we had a couple weekends ago, where it did look like there weren't like a lot of marquee matchups, but then that's the week that a lot of those top 10 teams did go down. So can't count everybody, or can't count on all those guaranteed wins, but I did want to look at a little bit maybe more competitive matchups, and then maybe some stuff that had like conference implications on the line, like those ACC matchups and like the USC Washington one does, just their first year in the Big Ten, just kind of looking at that and that through that lens.
Yeah. And I know some of you're hearing, well, college football, NFL. What about baseball? Well, considering that the World Series is pretty much decided, not officially, if by chance that by the time we record next week, which there will be a result, we're going to talk about the result, and we'll kind of go over everything next week, because it's just easier than trying to guesstimate, and it's also nice to see the full version of what happened, and we can discuss what we thought was good and what's not. All I can say is that I've never seen a team who gives a refund to fans that have been banned from their stadium. I'm just saying, I've never seen it, and that only is a New York Yankee thing. So that is just the fascinating part about sports, and the fact that if they would have lost that game, those fans would have never been allowed to be seen on property of the New York Yankees facility ever again, but now they're treated like kings. So welcome to baseball, people. Welcome to baseball.
Welcome to baseball.
That is true, where everything just is a little crazy. Anyways, I hope you all had a fantastic time listening. It is November, probably when you're listening to this, so that means it's crazy that Christmas is just a month and a half away, and the life gets a little busier for all of us. But I hope you're able to spend time with friends and family, watch some football, maybe watch some hockey or some basketball. We'll be talking about those coming up soon, or maybe or baseball if it's still going on this weekend as well. But hopefully you find some time to just sit back and relax and enjoy that. And once again, if you love listening to us on Apple Podcasts, I should say, if you love watching us on YouTube, go click that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. And if you love listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you can find your podcasts, then please leave a rating and answer the question below in the comments. This is your question today. Does a fan who interferes with any ball in the game, should they ever be allowed back into your stadium? That's the question. I'm interested to hear your responses, because to be honest with you, my opinion, just ban them for life. All right, you're ruining the game.
I'll answer the question. I think that this wasn't even necessarily interference, where both of them tried to catch it. This was directly intervening, where Mookie catches the ball and the fan grabs his glove with both hands and rips it out. Like, that's not like you both, like, you were trying to catch a foul ball and Mookie's like reaching over the fence to catch it or whatever.
That dude literally
oh my gosh,
stole the ball.
That is,
and it's funny because
steal.
You know what's funny is it stole the ball, and they're from New York. Anyways, just leave that there. Anyways, I hope you guys have a phenomenal weekend. Make sure you go vote if you get the chance. And until next time, we'll see ya.